Hello there, and welcome to How to Write Fantasy and Science Fiction, Episode 2. And in this episode, we're dealing with character and characterization. If you recall, in episode number 1, we looked at the classic hero's journey plot shape for constructing a fantasy or science fiction narrative. That plot shape actually comes with archetypal characters that need to be represented in science fiction and fantasy if your work is going to even be recognized as existing within that genre. If you go too left field, if you don't include any of these types of characters, people are then saying, yeah, but is it really fantasy and science fiction? So, what's this set of archetypal characters? Well, I'll just run through the classic top 6, 7 of them. You don't have to include all of them, but you need to focus on 1 or 2 of them at least. Okay, so first of all, we have, of course, the wizard, often a white-haired elder, and then we have the magician's apprentice, so the wizard's younger trainee, who's often a companion, who's often learning the magical arts, and is often referred to as the chosen one in classic narratives. Then we have, of course, the counterpart to the chosen one, often called the Dark Lord, a satanic, malevolent figure, a dark magician, if you like. And then we have a character who's variously a thief, a rogue, or a mercenary, someone whose morality is what we might call grey rather than white or black. And then we have often a jester, comedian, sidekick, close friend. And finally, of course, we have the princess, or the love interest. Yes, I'm afraid to say that, our classic hero's journey is often a very patriarchal, male-dominated model. This is the classic version. I will come on to what more modern fantasy looks like and how it's changed things up a bit. Okay. We can think of that character list, those archetypes, in terms of a classic movie like Star Wars, the first one, A New Hope, where the wizard is Obi-Wan Kenobi, the wise elder who lives out in the desert. The magician's apprentice, of course, is Luke Skywalker, who's learning the ways of the Force and the ways of power and the ways of magic. The love interest we have is Princess Leia, though in the later movies, turns out she's his sister, which is a bit odd, but there you go. We have, of course, the Dark Lord as Darth Vader, and then in later movies we have the Emperor. We have the thief rogue mercenary is actually Han Solo, who, especially in that first movie, is very mercenary, is doing everything for money, doesn't even want to stay for the final battle. The comedian kind of jester sidekick is actually C-3PO, who does a very good job of it, and of course, as I've mentioned, Princess Leia. In that classic model, if you remember episode 1 and the plot shape, the chosen one, although potentially Christ-like and ultimately self-sacrificing, they start with a character flaw. That's important to remember, that your hero must have a flaw and they must grow and learn as an individual to become a better person. And by the end of it, they become more Christ-like and self-sacrificing. Now, let's think about modern tastes. No one is perfect. No one does become that full superhero Christ-like figure. So nowadays, our chosen one tends to be more and more imperfect. And by the same token, the Dark Lord is not absolutely evil, so that they almost have a rationale. And, we are now getting more and more, instead of a hero as our protagonist, but more of an anti-hero. So if you look at Game of Thrones, a lot of the lead popular characters like Tyrion the dwarf actually is quite an anti-hero, quite immoral in many, many ways. And for much of a Game of Thrones, it's the most immoral individual, the one with the biggest sword and the one who hesitates least in using it, who tends to win out. And Robb, Robb Stark, kind of dies by series 3 at the Red Wedding and so on. So, that's something to bear in mind, that, today's modern fantasy and science fiction does not have such a goody as the lead, and as in the days of Luke Skywalker. Um, what else might I mention on character? Yeah, well, how to construct a character, how much is too much and how much is too little, what's full characterization. Well, I recommend looking at the creative writing mini lessons that I've got on my website, which is www.ajdalton.eu. And there are short examples of how to build a character, a compelling and engaging character, which I'd recommend you looking at. It's all there for free. Alternatively, if you want more detailed, gritty explanation with examples from successful sci-fi and fantasy, you might want to grab a copy of The Satanic in Science Fiction and Fantasy. It's very good. I did my best, and my mum's proud. But there you go. See you later.